That's my last chance to ring the bell, so I'm taking advantage. Welcome, everybody, to this year's annual meeting and summit of future topics. Really grateful to have everybody here in person. And of course, we've got a lot of people that are joining us by Zoom as well. So thank you, everybody in Zoom land, for joining us today and participating along the way. Just because you're not here in person, we are going to get a lot of input from those that are not here. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I noticed when I was doing a little bit of preparation for today's meeting that the organization 64 years ago, which means 65 is going to be our anniversary next year. January of 1962, the Arizona Academy of Public Affairs was created. That was the original name and the legal name of the Arizona Town Hall, for those that might have remembered that, until about 1989. In 1989, we finally formally changed the name to the Arizona Town Hall. And so we'll look forward to celebrating the 65th anniversary next year. So we've got a big program today for you guys. This is always a special time for us when we gather, not only for our board meeting that happened prior to us gathering here today for lunch and the summit, but it's also a time for us to pick our new topics. And so you're going to learn a lot about that today as we go through the process. Let me always do this and get a raise of hands. How many people have been to an annual summit of topics before? Raise your hand. Okay, a lot of choir here, right? And then so raise your hand if this is your first time joining us for one of these. Okay, good. All right. So thank you for being here. And when it comes to the Arizona Town Hall, once you join one of our events, you almost always will come back again. And we welcome that. We thrive as a volunteer organization. Not only the members of the board, but a lot of the work that gets done is done not only by staff, but chiefly and a lot by our, not chiefly, but a lot by our volunteers. So we hope that this will not be your last time for those of you that are first, but there'll be future chances for you to join us again. And so now I'm going to turn over the program to our president, Tara Jackson.
Thank you so much, Darren. So next year will be 65 years, and I may be the only person in the room who knows this, but today it will be 20 years as president and CEO of Arizona Town Hall for me. The time has flown. Thank you for that. You know, when I tell other people outside of this area why I do this work, I always explain that it is my pay it forward career, because the mission of what the Arizona Town Hall does is so incredibly important and has been for 64 years and will be hopefully for 600 more to come, because it is all about bringing people together, solving problems, decreasing polarization. Where are you, John? You're out there somewhere. Looking out for family and children. Where's January? Somewhere in here, or maybe she's coming soon. Or how many times has water been the issue that we had to address and to help solve? So anyway, it's wonderful to be here, and everything we do is about collaborating with partners. We are in this amazing space. Once again, one of our favorite partners in so many ways. So special thanks to our event hosts, the Maricopa Community Colleges and Rio Salado College specifically. Let's give them a round of applause. So I know, thank you, Darren, for already starting the interactive. Town Hall is all about interactive. How many of you have never been to a town hall program before? I think I saw a few new faces. Welcome. This really is an amazing organization, and a little flashback, over 60 years, almost 65. It just gives you a feel when you look at that collage, not only all the different recommendations that have been implemented and impact your life every day. If you drove on a freeway to get here, that idea came out of a town hall on transportation and was implemented. If you know anything about the court system, whether good or bad, you've been in front of the Arizona court system, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, guess what? You've got some of the best judges in the country. And you know why? The merit selection system that came out as the idea from the 1970s town hall on the court system. I could go on and on. Actually, I saw a license plate yesterday, so I'll bring that up. You ever see those license plates with the handprints? It shouldn't hurt to be a child. That came out of a town hall. I didn't even know that. Someone just told me who was part of making it happen. There are all those things you can point to that come from what happens when you get a whole lot of people together and create that space for creative solutions. When you rely on the superpower and the wisdom and knowledge of all different voices, not just the quote experts, but the people who are experts in their community and who are experts of dealing with that particular situation. In addition to those issues, it's the leadership development. It's learning a new way of solving problems. Those that were a part of our board meeting this morning, we talked a little bit about how inspiring it is and impactful to hear from international leaders who learn about how to facilitate using our process when they take it back to their communities, the power that has for grassroots collaborating and solving problems. I know for myself, when I attended my first town hall as a recorder, I didn't tell anyone there. I just started using those processes in all of, okay, I'm a recovering attorney. In all of my cases and solving problems, I use them as a managing partner at my law firm. I use them in facilitating conversations for different organizations, including, since I have my fellow Seroptimist, Judge Curley here, a few others. Seroptimist started a worldwide, Donna Davis, you're here, awesome. Donna and I together using the town hall process and a lot of other people started a worldwide effort that is still in place using the town hall model. So there you go, still going strong. And I bet many of you have many other examples if you've been a part of this. So what's happened since we were here last June? I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. We have a wonderful annual report, and we want you to hear from the great speakers you have today. But you can just look at this collage just at the second half of last year, programs all around the state on the topic of workforce development, as well as many other topics that we address for different communities. We had students, we had leaders, we had them all combined together. How do we solve those problems on workforce development? You can see all of those reports on our website. We know that many communities, some of you are working on those recommendations right now, and in fact, doing some additional potential programming. He doesn't know I'm looking at him, but Tom Cole, I'm thinking about you and a few others in the room, right? So that was just the end of last year. Already this year, we have not only had additional programs on workforce development, we had our capstone program, bringing in national speakers and additional conversation. We launched the background report for our topic this year on housing Arizona. So let me do a reverse poll. If you do not think there are any issues with housing in Arizona, raise your hand. Okay, that's what I thought. I was going to say, if you think everything's good, wonderful. I need to talk to you because we need some help from you. So that is what our main topic this year. If you want a program in your community, we would love to talk to you and arrange one to facilitate conversation about how to solve that problem. In addition, we do a lot of, we call them customized services. Some call them consulting projects around the state all the time for lots of different organizations and public entities. And we've been doing lots of that as well. And here, this next slide, just a quick preview. Again, I'm doing this very quickly because we want to get to the main gist of the program today. But some of our upcoming programs not only include the community town halls and the future leader town halls, whether they are high school, college, or sometimes 5th and 6th graders, bringing them together to talk about the topic. We have an amazing international relations committee chaired by Linda Elliott Nelson, who may be on the Zoom or not. I know she had to bounce off for a little bit. Lots of programs in play on that, and lots that we did last year as well, and a whole series of different organizations. we have already helped and are continuing to work with on customized services. A few of them are listed here, but just know if you have an organization, a government entity, or even a business, and you could benefit from the type of work that Town Hall does, we would love to partner with you to help you solve those issues. Well, we couldn't do any of it with all of you, and especially without the chair of our development committee, Barry Aarons, who's been involved with the town hall since the 1970s. He was at that town hall on the court system, right? No, not that one, a different one. Barry, you can come up and talk about it yourself. Why not? Please welcome Barry Aarons, the chair of our development committee.
No, but the the majority leader of the Arizona State Senate got me to work on that campaign. Anybody want to think of who the chairman of the state Senate, majority leader of the state Senate was in 1972, 74? Sandra Day O'Connor. It was something that she was very passionate about. No, my first town hall was on land use planning down in Rio Rico in October or April. We used to do those two things. I think October was Rio Rico and April was Grand Canyon, and that was on land use planning. And I got to tell you, it might as well have been on Greek language or Martian for as much as I knew. But I learned so much about that number of years later, I got appointed to the Glendale, Planning and Zoning Commission, and then subsequent to that, the Maricopa County Planning and Zoning Commission. What I learned at Town Hall helped me become a better commissioner, I'd like to believe. So it's education both ways, and I think it's really important. I want to spend just a minute. Tara told me I had 2 minutes. I already burst right through that. But she knows that I have a difficult time saying good morning in 2 minutes, but we can't do this without all of you. And there are a number of ways that people can participate. We've got some extremely generous partnerships and sponsors year in, year out. They're always there. We ask them for assistance. They make those contributions. We can't do it without them. We do the customized services, as Tara mentioned. And where is Evelyn? Evelyn, where are you? There she is, right in front of me, who kind of manages that whole customized services thing. And that helps because some organizations and municipalities, other political subdivisions are willing to raise money, even if they have very, very limited resources to enable us to do those customized services. We have individual support. You'll remember a number of years ago when we celebrated our 60th anniversary, we started 60 by 60. And Darren mentioned this morning at the board meeting, he gives whatever he gives every month. I'm doing it too. It's on my credit card. I don't even notice it. My accountant does because he wants to make sure I count it as a contribution, but does it. And then there's legacy giving. And for those of you who haven't considered, who are working on your estates, who are considering what they're going to do with their funds in their wills, in their estate planning, legacy giving is a really important way that you can provide assistance. But we need to take the next step. We've got to develop a sustainable set of sources of revenues moving forward so we can do more about those great things that town hall process does for people, as Tara said, all over the world. And in order to do that and get started on it, the development committee is going to have a meeting on July 10th at my office. When you set the meeting, when you're the chairman, you get to pick the place. It's going to be at my office. We have a very nice training room that the National Electrical Contractors Association uses. And we're going to have that from 9 to noon. And anybody who's interested, not just the town hall membership, not just the board, not just the executive committee or our development committee members, anybody who wants to participate in helping us devise the necessary plans to do that, that is something that I would love to see. We can seat 40 people in that room, and I'd love to run out of space. So if you're interested, we'll be sending out some notices, I believe. That was kind of a voluntold statement, okay? And look forward to it. And to talk more about it, there's a lot of nonprofits. We rely heavily on donations from a lot of our supporters throughout the state, not just on businesses. Our next speaker is somebody who supports the town hall, what did we stand for, and how she wants to help our bottom line. Please welcome Carissa Venetian to the platform. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all on July 10th.
Think you can or think you can't. Either way, you're right. During my 23 years at Salt River Project's in-house video production group, I scripted and produced more than 1,000 videos. That's in addition to having various roles at community banquets through the years, because SRP was a sponsor of those banquets. But there was something I really wanted to do. I wanted to executive produce a banquet. Well, one day an opportunity presented itself. Shirley Agnos was retiring from Arizona Town Hall, and a banquet was going to be produced in her honor. I was assigned to the planning committee because SRP was a big sponsor of this event. Well, one thing led to another, and I found myself writing the entire event script, as well as working with the wonderful folks at Town Hall and all the 1,000,001 particulars involved. Now, I had just two goals. First, the audience must have an enjoyable experience. I wanted the audience to be entertained. So when they walked out of that ballroom at the end, people would say, "Hey, I had a really good time tonight. So glad I decided to attend." And how many of you have said that walking out of any banquet? My second goal was the program absolutely must end at 9 o'clock. This shows respect for the audience's time. We're not running a Twilight Zone marathon. I'm happy to say that we did end on time. The banquet was a success, and Shirley was thrilled. But this experience helped me learn about Arizona Town Hall. I had to become an instant expert about this organization so that I could knowledgeably write that event script, in addition to interviewing Shirley for the video that was shown at her banquet. A very, very few nonprofits in Arizona have survived and thrived since 1962, but this is one of them. And since I have a very strong sense of community, having spent all those years at SRP, it's my obligation and privilege to include Arizona Town Hall in my estate planning. I've added Town Hall to my new trust, still working on it. It's almost done. But I have directed my trustee, who will be my attorney, to distribute between $50,000 and $100,000 to this organization. No conditions, no requirements. Years ago, I was at the town hall office and I heard Tara saying that she was concerned about paying the salaries. So again, no conditions. If you need to give everyone a raise with this money, Tara, it's completely up to you. So why am I doing this? Because I can. Think you can or think you can't. Either way, you're right.
Thank you so much, Carissa. What an amazing gift, and what an amazing legacy. So on this slide, it just so happens that bottom center photo is from the event that you put together. Does that look familiar now? And that was for Shirley's retirement when we started, actually, the Shirley Agnos Foundation. It's an investment account we have that has grown, and we only had to tap it briefly once at the beginning of the pandemic. And so, yeah, it was wonderful to find that photo, and Carissa helped put that together, helped start that foundation so many years ago. Little did you know, here we are. And, you know, in this past year at our last annual meeting, for those of you who knew Shirley Agnos, who served as at the town hall for over 42 years, the legacy that she left was far-reaching, both in impact, whether it was the leadership and the training town hall does, and the impact on policies, the impact on the state. She also, when she passed away last year, feels like yesterday, um, left a legacy in her will for us, and that has also very much helped as part of funding Arizona Town Hall. That's not her estate isn't finalized yet, but it's very close. So one of the things she left us, that bottom picture there, Shirley is wearing a necklace that was commissioned by the board at the time for her, and she left that to us, but we didn't know what to do with it that would honor her. Framing it and putting it on a wall, I thought someone's just going to steal it. Does that really honor Shirley? And her very close friend, Kathy Moore, if some of you know Kathy, said, I think the best way to honor Shirley's legacy with this pearl necklace she was known for. And the clasp, by the way, you can see that clasp made out of rubies and sapphires, is to restring the pearls and create a pin and then auction it for the benefit of Town Hall. And so what we're going to do, it's all been done. The pieces are absolutely beautiful. We're going to create an online auction that will be around the holidays. And if anyone else has some jewelry they want to add, that another way that you can give to the town hall, then that is going to be what we're going to do. Another way of Shirley's legacy continuing. So one more way you can help out continuing her legacy. Well, what also happened at that program that Carissa put together was the launch of the Shirley Agnos Arizona Town Hall Legacy Award. The very first recipient was Shirley Agnos herself. And since that time, it's an incredible list of people who have received this award honoring Shirley's longtime legacy. We have one in the room tomorrow or today. I'm getting all my todays and tomorrows put in one place today. And she was one of our award winners last year. She's a past chairman of the board. Yep, that's you. She chairs our customized service committee and is just on the go constantly, having very successfully failed retirement to the benefit of Town Hall and to the state of Arizona. Please welcome Evelyn Kasuga.
Thank you, Tara. So good day, attendees. And I've got this so I stay in the time limit. So as you've heard, Arizona Town Hall has thrived for 64 years. And because of one thing above all else, and you've heard this, the people. Volunteers from every corner of our state step forward, give generously of themselves, and follow through time and time again, like many of you in this room, as I'm looking at all the familiar faces, and give in many different ways. And Carissa, thank you for your gift. Our success, our impact, and our longevity simply would not exist without all of us. Today, we honor someone who exemplifies that spirit of service. She was giving me dirty looks right now, too, as well as anyone I know, Kathy Haake. So, yes, wait. Kathy has been that kind of volunteer every organization hopes for and every community benefits from. So over the years, she has worn just about every hat imaginable at Arizona Town Hall. She served as a facilitator, a recorder, both in person and learned to do it online like the rest of us. She's recruited members, helped raise funds, served as a board member, and staffed registration tables. Somebody had to do it. She has reviewed, analyzed, summarized, and reported on countless Arizona Town Hall projects and processes. And through it all, she has brought intelligence, integrity, and a genuine commitment to making this organization stronger. But Kathy's contributions extend far beyond the tasks she's completed. She's supported, encouraged, and mentored many of us over the years. She has a remarkable ability to make people feel welcomed, valued, and capable. Whether offering guidance to a new volunteer, oh my goodness, I'm helping a colleague navigate a challenge, or simply lending a listening ear, Kathy strengthens the people around her. What makes her service even more extraordinary is that Arizona Town Hall is only one of the many ways she gives back. Kathy generously shares her time, talent is treasure, as Barry would say, with numerous nonprofit organizations that improve lives and strengthen communities in Arizona. Her dedication to service is not an occasional act, it is a way of life. Another retiree flunky. And while we celebrate her many accomplishments today, those of us who know Kathy also know the joy she finds in the people and companions she loves the most. Her family and her husband, who's with us today, her friends, many of you here, and of course, her beloved cats are an important part of the rich and meaningful life she has built. There's an old saying that many hands make light work. That may be true, but Arizona Town Hall and all of us who've had the privilege of working alongside Kathy know something more. We are better because Kathy's hands are always there, ready to help, ready to lead, ready to support, and ready to serve. So, Kathy, your generosity, dedication, and an unwavering commitment have left a lasting mark on Arizona Town Hall and the countless individuals whose lives you've touched. It is our great honor to congratulate you on receiving the 2026 Shirley Agnos Arizona Town Hall Legacy Award. Please join me in celebrating Kathy Haake. All right. I know. We'll catch you. We'll all catch you.
Evelyn, if you had told me you wrote all that stuff, I would have said, geez, I don't need to say anything. I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am to receive this award. I got a letter yesterday from a friend many of you know, Rosemary Gannon. And in this letter, she made some comments about Shirley that I just can't beat. So let me read this and hope not to get choked. For those of us who had the pleasure of interacting with Shirley Agnos, we know the standard and example she upheld. I am sure that as a friend of Shirley's, thank you, the award is very meaningful to you. So meaningful, if you knew Shirley well, she collected scarves and always worn them. So I'm channeling my inner Shirley today by wearing a scarf, which is pretty good when it's 110 degrees outside. But I also stand in the shadow of so many people that I get to embarrass while I'm standing here. Sitting way in the back, looking at something is Arlen Colton. Stand up, Arlen. Arlen and I go way back. In fact, I go back far enough to town hall. Does anybody remember the women's town hall besides me? Evelyn does. Okay, all right, there's a few of us. That was a whole lot of fun. And there are a room full of volunteers here. Greg's looking in his notes. Greg has done everything there is to do, chaired our committees for training. And if you've not been to one of his workshops, you're missing a treat. He goes through everything you can possibly experience as a panel chair, most of which is not always pleasant, and keeping us in line. I see Patrick McWhorter over there on the side. Patrick's record of service to nonprofits in this community is unparalleled. and I appreciate that. Who else do we have? I haven't seen Holly Figueroa, but there she is. Hello, Miss Holly, representing Flagstaff and our Indigenous population with honor. And then I had the pleasure of sitting next to Lydia Aranda. Without telling you how old I am, I took a class from her mother when she was about that size. Her and her dad, who passed away some years ago, just wonderful, wonderful people. And I don't see Nina Targovnik here. Is she back there? Where are you, Nina? Wave to me. Her mother was my dermatologist. So we go back a few. And she has been a consistent supporter. And I cannot ignore Deanna Villanueva Salcido back there, who is our host and been our partner. I was fortunate to be at what was hosted here at Maricopa Community Colleges as the first, what we then called youth lead town halls, now future leaders. What an experience. That was just not to be lost. And then I see other people here. If I didn't mention you, my apologies. I see Marisol came in a little bit later, and I am pleased to see her here as well. I stand in the shadow of the prior recipients. When I look at that list, I'm just awed. As usual, Tara stole about half of my thunder. She's very good at that. Whoa, we're going to put that out of the way. So let me mention a few of theirs. The second recipient was Katie Dusenberry. And if you're from Tucson, you darn well know who Katie is. Followed some years later by her son, Bruce, who I had the pleasure of writing some remarks for him when he was the chair of the town hall. Passed away some years ago, Art Decabuter from Scottsdale Community College. Go Artichokes. And then there's Linda Elliott Nelson. In case you don't know, Yuma rocks in 2 languages and across the border as well. And I know she's here today. Elizabeth McNamee, who I actually recruited as a volunteer while she was eating lunch. She told me she had retired. Now, if you don't know anything about Tara, you will know never ever say that you have time or that you are open to doing something. She will find a way for you to be engaged, and you'll like it. Trust me, you will. But Elizabeth is the mother of the community town halls, which now number over 1,000 participants every year, which went to our long-term strategic plan of expanding the tent. And then there's Suzanne Feaster, another example of a generational leader. Suzanne is responsible for bringing the Vitalist Foundation to be a force for healthy communities across the state of Arizona. Just an amazing person that we have now lost. Then there's Pat Norris, who happens to be at the State Bar Conference today. She was board chair during COVID before there was vaccine and before we all learned to be Zoom whisperers. And she also was one heck of a tough judge and an excellent panel chair if you ever sat in one of her panels. And then I have to think about Mary Greer, who not only did she send me some flowers, but if you have been to town halls, you know that we name our panels after our cacti plants, except one is called Hedgehog. I now have sitting at home a hedgehog stuffed about this big that Mary sent me. And finally, Evelyn, I just can't let you off the hook. You're an incredible facilitator and you're a program expert. You're a servant leader who models what it means to be a service leader, and you bring joy and energy to everything you do, including the dance floor if you have not seen her dance, for charity as well. The town hall attracts and builds these kinds of leaders from all walks of life across our state. No matter the issue or the climate around us, or our personal differences. We come together not to debate, persuade, or correct others, but further to be sure that every voice is heard and given equal value, which makes the panel chair role really difficult. Recognizing, as one of my favorite people, Maya Angelou, said, we are more alike than we are different. And like Mr. Rogers believed, we are all about we, not them. And then there's the wisdom of Yoda. This is one for Alex, who in his mind, we don't direct another what to do. And we are not satisfied with try. We are about do. We're not a think tank. Each community town hall ends with participants completing an at-will statement. And that's an action, you all know, each person will take coming away. So it's not that we just get together and feed you lunch and all the rest of that. You actually have to do something when you leave the room. And we follow up to find out if you did or not. I've been privileged to find many at-will opportunities or I-will opportunities at the town hall as a participant and a volunteer, and my life's been enriched as a result. If you had a chance to listen to Harrison Ford's commencement address at ASU this year, he said a number of things, but my favorite line is passion is what gets you up in the morning. Purpose is what lets you sleep at night. I think the Arizona Town Hall helps individuals, groups, and communities find their purpose, as exemplified by some of the actions that have occurred as a result. And I have to thank our amazing president, Tara, our director of technology and communications standing in the back of the room, Alex, and our college interns, which we have an army of those, exemplified by Jacob. Stand up, Jacob, so we can see you. And a soon and recent example of the apple didn't fall from far from the tree is Sophia Washa in the back of the room, who is going to be helping us with a consulting contract. And last but not least, you heard all about these reports that Evelyn said. This is a team effort. Jan Miller, come on, stand up. Another person I recruited and has been in every role possible, including when we went to the prison in Perryville. So she's been everywhere. And last but not least, I have to include a thank you to the gentleman that brought me today. I literally would not be standing here without my husband of 53 years. So I ran over my time. It's an honor and a joy to be associated with Town Hall. I sincerely appreciate this award, especially when it's named after somebody like Shirley. And I look forward to our continued leadership in building civic engagement across Arizona and to infinity beyond. Namaste. Can I get down? No. You did a great job. Okay. Okay. First, we have to get down.
Mike, you're amazing. And Kathy, you are truly amazing. I just want to give one shout out as a joke because Kathy did such a wonderful job, as she always does, of acknowledging so many people. One of the people she acknowledged was Jan Miller. Jan has done so much for Arizona Town Hall that I just thought she was a past board member. It's now become our joke. But no, she's actually never been a member of the board. I don't know that she wants to now. She just does so many projects, but you can always jump in. Hopefully they're fun. You know, if you want to keep learning, if you want to have that purpose that allows you to sleep at night, we are here for you. And if you tell me you have time and you want to work with me, you know I've got something for you, right? So Congratulations, Kathy. So well deserved. Thank you so much for all you do and for all of you do. So part of what we also do today is our board members all have term limits. Some go off, some come on, and we have two terming off today. Allison is not with us, but she's already committed to continuing helping us in many ways. And Barry technically terms off as a member of the board, but will continue chairing our development committee and helping us out in so many ways. But let's just give them a round of applause for their time on the board. And I will not read all these names, I promise, but these are our continuing board members whose term allows them to continue in their service. And if you are here today and you're continuing on and you're one of those continuing, would you just stand up so we can give you a round of applause? If you're online, we're applauding for you. Stand up in your Zoom room. Thank you for your service already and continuing to serve us. Our goal is always to have a diverse group of people from around the state on our board that allows us to truly represent Arizona. Here are our new board members. Again, I won't take the time to name them all, but some of them are here in the room today, and I would love for you to stand up as our new board members. Welcome aboard. And in the case of someone like Steve Peru, welcome back to the board. Because while you might get term limited off and we'll bring you back, we'd love to have you back. Wonderful to have you back with us again. So we also have our next transition. It's also when we transition officers. You heard from Darren earlier, and it is his time to be leaving as board chair. You might be wondering what all these things are up here. Of course, the flowers are the gift from Mary Greer to Kathy. This beautiful award here is for Kathy, and we'll make sure she gets it. We have a few things to mark Darren's term on the board. So typically, I give a personal gift to the outgoing board chair, and it's something that symbolizes something unique about them and their board chair service. Even before stepping into board chair elect and then board chair, Darren has been an integral part of working to make sure that the important work of Arizona Town Hall, work that he first encountered as a college student, how many years ago? 30 years ago, continues to its next iteration, continues supporting his children and all of our children and grandchildren and all the children of Arizona, whether they were born to you or not. Very important work. But he applied his talents and time to implement the consensus recommendation of a brain trust of former board chairs who met at the end of 2019. Think about that. We didn't know the pandemic was about to happen. And we had this brain trust come together to say, how can we move forward the incredible important work of the town hall? The consensus of this brain trust was defined in the words of Judge Pat Norris. I wish she was here. To find a good marriage partner, where our unique assets as a trusted Arizona institution would have even more impact with an organization that valued and lived the importance of civic engagement and education. Through some skilled matchmakers, that marriage partner was identified as the Maricopa County Community Colleges. As with any good marriage, it took time, a long engagement, a prenuptial in the form of an MOU, heavily vetted by attorneys, the establishment of separate bank accounts to maintain financial independence, and even a brief stint of living together before marriage in the form of shared office space at the district office. And then this past Monday, initial steps for this marriage took place in the form of me becoming the Chief Dialogue Officer for Maricopa, expanding the civic mission of the college. Special thank you to Deanna back there. We've been working on this for a while. To ensure that this new role will bring maximum impact to Maricopa's mission of civic engagement, while strengthening the financial and operational operations of the Arizona Town Hall, Darren will temporarily step into a contract role, managing much of the operations and development of Arizona Town Hall, which will continue as a nonprofit organization, continuing all the work it's been doing while expanding impact with this new collaboration. For that reason, Darren is stepping down a year early from the role of board chair, and Greg Falls has graciously agreed to fill that term until next year when Whitney Hensiak will take the helm. So first of all, we know that when a town hall board chair steps down, they really miss ringing this bell. And so we don't want them to go without those. So the first thing we always do is we give them their own bell. Not only is it engraved, but it is fully operational. But then I also give that individual gift, and that's just my way of kind of having fun. So given Darren's constant efforts to manifest constructive transformation, not only to the Arizona Town Hall, but to his community and the larger state and country, it seemed only fitting to present him with, he has no idea what's coming, a transformer. And as far as I know, it is fully operational. And thank you, Jacob, for at the last minute making sure that his gift bag also had it on. So with that, please welcome Mr. Transformer himself to the podium. Darren?
I did not expect that. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Tara, and your thoughtfulness and creativity continues to be exhibited. So thank you so much for that. It's actually not something I looked forward to, stepping down as board chair. It's a true honor, having been involved in the town hall for 30 years. First, when I was at Arizona State University in student government, and I've got two close friends here that were involved in that. We've got Andy back there, Ortiz, who I served with in the student government. So thank you for being here, Andy. And also John Fries was also part of student government. And I was very involved with the two of them. But Shirley Agnos created opportunities for the university students to attend town hall. And there was a method to her madness because I've never left. After 30 years, I've continued to stay engaged with the Arizona Town Hall. And being on the board of directors for many years now, I don't even know how many years it's been, has been a true honor. And to be and have seen all of the prior chairs that came before me, incredible people. And some of them are the award winners for the Shirley Agnos Award. So congratulations, Kathy. Also, Haake, for getting the award this year. It's very well deserved. And so I want to tell you a little bit about how we got to where we are today. Tara's already given the track record of what has transpired with the Maricopa Community College District and how that's evolved to a monumental week for us this week, with Tara finally assuming the position that will allow us to become a stronger partner with the Maricopa Community College District. And again, to Deanna, she had to do a lot of the heavy lifting and in fact was our champion inside of the Community College District. So that is a key ingredient to where we are. But I was working with Tara for a little bit of time talking about how the organization can be developed and evolve over time. And that conversation continued on. And then the capstone event that happened earlier this year for the Workforce Development Town Hall, the chair will always be the main facilitator of that event. I will tell you that after that event was over and the place where I am in my life right now ended with me being in my driveway in the afternoon after we finished our work, sitting in the car thinking to myself, you know what? It's time for me to do more for the town hall. It's time for me to step up and put something out there for us to do more. That what followed was a conversation with Tara, and I cautiously told her that I was interested in playing a bigger role with the town hall, with the main objective of providing support for her as our leader of our organization and creating with her, in partnership with her, a stronger future for the Arizona Town Hall. And of course, I told her that I hadn't made my final decision yet when we talked about it, and I was not sure that I should tell her for fear she wouldn't let me off the hook, but she didn't need to. By the time we were done, I said, well, let's make this happen. The next thing that happened was we had to figure out, well, if Darren's going to step down and play a different role, what do we do for the future? And as we looked at that opportunity, we had already more or less had a decision that we were going to ask Whitney. Where's Whitney here? Is Whitney here? Whitney, right there at the table. So we already knew that we were going to ask Whitney to become our chair elect, and we didn't think it was quite fair to say to move from chair elect right into being the chair. And so she might still have done it, but nonetheless, as Tara and I looked at, well, what were the opportunities for what would happen next? What we decided to do was see if we could corner Greg and gang up on him as our immediate past board chair. And that was an interesting conversation because we went through the list of who we thought could fill that role. And as we ticked through the list and said, well, that's not going to work, that's not perfect, Greg said, well, maybe I'm the last man standing here. And Tara and I were like, yes, awesome, Greg, thank you for that. We appreciate your willingness to do it. And so Greg has graciously agreed to reassume the position of the board chair for the Arizona Town Hall. He has already been praised today for all that he has done for the town hall, which is a lot. And he thought he was going to be off sailing in San Diego after this year because past chair would have already, well, you would have been for another year, I guess, Greg. But anyway, bottom line is that he's going to be stepping in for another year to finish out my term and then pass things over to ably to Whitney. So, Greg, thank you for stepping up again.
So I'll come to order. I understand I have a few minutes for some comments. And so my first is, Kathy, why did we make you wait so long for that award? Wow. Um, Something happened there, but anyway, the world is in balance again, so we're good. And congratulations, well-deserved award. Um, as Darren mentioned, I'm doing this for a year. The week of June 14, 2027, Whitney's going to boot me out of this job, take over, and move on to a new administration, let's call it. So, what are we going to do for the next year? Darren's been doing a good job as the chair of this organization, and the idea in my mind is not to mess that up. So, that's one thing that we're going to do. Some other things we're going to do is relax, observe, comment whenever and wherever I can with my thoughts, and support the supporters. And who are the supporters? Well, you've heard of people who give financially, and please, if that's one of you or you know somebody or whomever, please continue because we can't do what we do without that support. But behind the scenes, I second Tara's comments, thanking the outgoing board members and introducing the incoming board members. You are the supporters, and most of you, all of you, do a very good job of helping us do what we do. But also, there are others. We have, I didn't know Jan had never been a board member either. We have people like Jan who are not necessarily board members, but they sometimes do a lot more than many of the rest of us. And we cannot do what we do without them. If you look behind the scenes of almost any town hall function, you will see a whole team of people who are volunteers giving their time, their expertise, and contributing to the town hall as a supporter, but also to Arizona for the purpose of advancing whatever our topic is, whatever we're doing that day. So my goal is to support the supporters and keep things going along smoothly. So that's what we're going to do. I already gave some comments to Barry. So when I have some, I will throw them out there and we'll see where they go. But beyond that, I think Town Hall will just keep going the way we're going. I have been coming to these annual meetings more years than I'm willing to admit, but we generally do two things at these meetings. We give awards. We recognize contributions by outgoing people, welcome incoming people, and we thank you all for what you do for the town hall. That's about half of what we do. The other half of what we do is we pick a topic for an upcoming town hall. I am continually amazed at the speakers that we bring in to talk about these topics. And to this day, after I listen to them, I think, oh, wow, okay, we had speakers on 3 topics. Let's just do all of them. Well, that's not the way it works. We have to divide and conquer, meaning we have to pick one and we will go with that one. Maybe we'll do the others down the road in a future year, at a future time. But what we're here to do now is to hear from our speakers. We will then, after that, and I'll come back up and run us through the logistics of doing that before we break up. But after that, we will break up into groups where we will have discussion. Then we will do something we almost never do, which is vote. And the winning vote will be the topic for 2028. So you don't need to hear any more from me other than I'm going to introduce the speakers. I think what I will do is introduce them one by one, have them speak, and then come up and introduce the next one. You have some sheets on your tables with full bios. And so I'm not going to read the whole thing because you can read. But I am going to say a little bit about them generally from the first part of their bio. Our first speaker is Rhett Larson. And Rhett is the Richard Morrison Professor of Water Law at Arizona State University's Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. He's also a research fellow with the Kyle Center for Water Policy at ASU's Morrison Institute for Public Policy. I think we've heard of those. Rhett's research and teaching interests are in property law, administrative law, and environmental and natural resource law. Rhett's here to tell us about water. And Rhett, please, I turn the floor over to you.
Well, thank you all so much for the invitation and the opportunity to speak with you. I want to make sure this is short so that people have lots of time for questions and lots of time for the other speakers. What I was hoping to do was, I will not use all of these slides. Some of them are there just because if you have questions, maps and charts help. But before I talk, I do really quickly want to make sure we know what an acre foot is. So you're going to hear me say acre foot every once in a while, and you're going to wonder what in the world that is. An acre foot is 1 acre flooded to 1 foot deep, or it's almost 326,000 gallons. It's 1,233 cubic meters. It's about the amount of water that, depending on where you're at in the state, 2 to 3 households use about that amount of water in a single year. Why do we measure things by acre feet in the Colorado River Basin? Because this is America. And if there is a ridiculous way to measure something, so help me, we will measure it in the most ridiculous way, right? We will get 20 rods to the hogshead, and we will not use that super sensible metric system, all right? So I do want to just run through the main questions that I hope will help people make their decisions. Then if people have questions, we can look at other slides if they're helpful. So the first question I want to talk about is whether or not water is important. I hope the answer to that question is self-evident. I hope I don't have to come up here and like advocate for why the fundamental molecule of life is important to you. The only reason this big blue rock we're all spinning on right now matters is because it's blue. If it weren't blue, it'd be like every other dumb rock. So the only thing that matters is water. It is the most important thing. But I will say the choice to live in the desert is the choice to prioritize water. In the desert, it doesn't matter what other policies you get right if you get water policy wrong. You can have the best roads and the best tax system and the most job growth, and everything can be great. And if you botch water policy, none of the other things will matter. Also, water is every other problem. Water is housing, water is food, water is energy, water is technological development, water is job growth and economic development, water is food and nutrition, water is poverty, water is immigration, water is drug trafficking, water is armed conflict, water is everything. Every problem on Earth at its heart is a water problem. So I'm a survivor of a Category 5 hurricane. In the wake of that hurricane, I will tell you that every other problem seemed solvable if you could just get a clean cup of water. And without a clean cup of water, every other problem seemed impossible. You might be surprised at how many problems you think have nothing to do with water get better because you invest and focus on water. So, is water important? It couldn't possibly be more important. I'm going to take the last one second, which has the topic recently been covered or is about to be addressed. So water was the topic in 2015. So water has been covered relatively recently. I will say that a lot has changed and is about to change in water since 2015. For those who are following it in the news, the Colorado River Basin, all of the rules that govern how the states share the Colorado River in times of shortage expire at the end of this year. The federal government has a proposal about how it will move forward. That proposal, if it is the ultimate proposal that will be adopted, will be devastating for the state of Arizona. It will mean massive cuts in the Colorado River for all of us. The federal government's next plan will be complicated if it ends up being the plan that's proposed. So an enormous amount has changed. All the debates about Saudi alfalfa farms, all the debates about moratoriums on housing development, all of the challenges that you remember when Rio Verde foothills got their water supply cut off. All of those big water stories that you've heard about the last few years, they've all been since 2015. And I promise you, the biggest water story is about to hit. Which takes us to the next question, which is 2028 the right time to talk about these issues? So at the end of this year, all of the rules that govern the Colorado River, the shortage sharing of the Colorado River, they will expire. I'm here to tell you that we are careening towards massive litigation between the states. At this stage, I don't see how that's going to be avoided. Assuming the federal government moves forward with their proposal, assuming that the lower basin proposal, the proposal that Arizona, California, Nevada have put on the table, assuming that that is rejected, which looks, based on the last hearing in the Senate Natural Resources Committee, it doesn't look good that that will be the proposal that's accepted, then the federal government's proposal will be a 10-year proposal that will effectively be renegotiated operating guidelines every 2 years. So that means 2 years from now, we will be back up for renegotiating everything on the Colorado River. So 2028 will be a critical moment because that will be when all of the rules are going to have to get renegotiated again. It will also be an election year. And in an election year, water literacy matters a lot. Who we vote for, we no longer have the luxury of having water illiterate representatives. We need to have people who can speak about water and can advocate for water who are holding elected positions. So it's important that all Arizonans demand of their elected officials, you need to be a water literate person. You need to be able to speak intelligently about these challenges. So I think 2028 is going to be a great time to talk about these issues. So this gets me to the next thing to talk about, which is what's the best way to frame the water issue going forward? I have 3 suggestions about how you might consider framing the issue. One is water has always been very political, but it has not tended to be very partisan, meaning that the conflicts in water, they tend to be urban versus rural. They tend to be tribal versus non-tribal. They tend to be conflicts between different industrial sectors, pecan and citrus farmers versus vegetable farmers. It very, very rarely is Republican versus Democrat. That's usually not how it breaks down. But I do feel like our national politics are starting to sound different to me. Growing up in water politics, I used to always tell people this is how water politics sounds. It doesn't sound like a conversation between progressives and conservatives. Water politics sounds like this. A small town, a farming or mining community will say, you big cities, you treat us like we're stupid. You treat us like our values are backwards. We're the ones that grow your food. We're the ones that mine your minerals. And you use your economic and your political power to push us around. And then the cities will say, we're the ones that are creating the jobs. We're the ones that are living more sustainably. You're the ones that are using too many resources and causing too much pollution. We're the ones that are sort of living closer together. We're the ones where all the growth is happening. It increasingly makes it sound like our broader national politics sounds like water politics. So one way for us to talk about this is the future of Arizona. Our water future is going to be a complex and tense interaction between rural and urban communities. We have in Arizona, we use a lot less water now than we did in the 1950s. And the reason is lots of reasons, but principally because we keep retiring agricultural land and replacing it with domestic and commercial and industrial uses. And when that happens, we save a lot of water. But those costs will get passed on to you, right? Because the more farmland we retire, the more you're going to feel that pinch in the grocery store. So one way to frame a future conversation at Arizona Town Hall around water is, how do we use water to build bridges between rural and urban communities rather than aggravate tensions between them? There's an opportunity for us to use water as a source of collaboration and connection rather than tension. Cities are going to go to places like Harquahala and the McMullen Valley to pump groundwater and move it in. More and more cities are going to look at what Queen Creek did to buying out Colorado river rights in Cibola, Arizona, to move them into central Arizona. This is going to create tensions. And for a lot of farmers who sell out, they walk away with a big check in their pocket. So when they sell their water rights and their land to a city, they walk away with a big check in their pocket. But you know who gets hurt but doesn't get any money? The tractor repairman, the fertilizer salesman, the school teacher, the dry cleaner, everybody who was in that rural community that got wiped out. The farmers got a bunch of money, but a bunch of other people, their community just got devastated. They didn't get anything. So that might be one way to frame it. Another way to frame it might be, this is something I'm really struggling with as someone who's spending a lot of my time right now talking about water, which is, how do I raise the level of concern without tripping over into panic? Concern, worry is an asset we need to cultivate in Arizona. If you move to the desert and you're not a little worried about your water, you're not thinking hard enough. So worry is a good thing. You should be worried. Panic is a liability. We have no use for panic. Panic is going to be counterproductive. And as we enter into this stage in 2028, the media narrative, particularly the national media narrative, may be Arizona is drying up. Look at all the problems that Arizona is having. And that narrative may drive a lot of attitudes about, then don't locate your business here. Don't move your family here. Don't raise your kids here. And that perception may be just as bad as an actual water scarcity problem. So one of the things we can work on as a state is, how do we do better messaging about encouraging concern and engagement on water, but how do we counter a narrative that says Arizona's falling apart? Because despite all of our challenges, I remain very optimistic about Arizona's future. We have been a leader in the past. We can do it again, but we're running out of time to do it again. And the last way I will suggest framing this is, I'm a dad. I've got 4 kids. My oldest kids are getting older. They're adults now and they're moving out of the house and they're asking big questions, the biggest questions. What do I want to do with my life? What do I want to study in school? What do I want my career to be? Who am I going to marry? Where am I going to live? And when they ask for my advice, I tell them life isn't about having all of your dreams come true. It's about having the most important ones come true. I told my kids, hey, I really wanted to have like an avocado and passion fruit farm in the Dominican Republic and just like be a beach bum there for the rest of my life. But the most important dream to me was your mom. She's my dream. And I had to give up some nice sounding dreams in order to make my biggest dreams come true. Arizona is at that point with water. We have enough water to do a lot of great things, but we don't have enough water to do every good thing. And I'm telling you, we are not running out of water. We are running out of cheap water. And I don't just mean your water rates are going to go up, they are. But I also mean the complexity of the trade-offs are going to go up, right? We can have a bunch of data centers, but your milk might be a lot more expensive. We can build a lot of houses, but that may impact ecotourism or golf. These are going to be hard trade-offs. And one of the things we have never had in Arizona that we could really use is a state water plan. Because for water experts, we can get us to whatever future we want once we decide what we want to be when we grow up. So if the state tells the water experts, here's the trade-offs we're willing to make, can you lead us to that future? Then we can get us there. So once Arizona says, this is our dream, this is what we want to be, and this is what we're willing to give up to get there, that will help guide state decisions. But right now, it just feels like we're making trade-offs without any long-term strategic choice. So this leads to the last point, which is, can Arizona Town Hall make an impact on water? I think we can make an impact on water if the following happens. We consider making the aim advocating for a state water plan to guide the kinds of trade-offs we're going to make. That we talk about funding for long-term water augmentation in the state. How do we find sustainable long-term funding sources for augmenting our water supply? And especially during an election year, how do we encourage and facilitate electing for water literate leaders in the future? Thanks.
Thank you, Rhett. That was good. We've talked about water several times over the history of Town Hall. Good explanation of why we should talk about it again. And okay, I'm ready to vote for water. Let's hear from the other speakers before I vote, though. Our next speaker is John Fees. John Fees is a serial entrepreneur with direct experience building technology-enabled ventures at the intersection of financial services and education. His success in this arena has led to the sale of two prior business ventures, Y2M and Members Connect, to Viacom and JP Morgan Chase. John has served as the chair of Arizona Education Forward, a director of College Parents of America, and as founding director and investor in Pathways to Learning that provides leadership experiences to 8,000 students annually. He's also co-founder of Leadership Now Arizona, part of a national membership organization of businesses and thought leaders working to protect and renew American democracy. John is here to talk about reducing polarization. John, the floor is yours.
Got my water. Rhett, I vote for water too. And I agree. I hope it's not a partisan issue. Thank you, Tara, for the invitation to come. So many good friends are here. It's really, I very much like Darren. My first town hall experience was as a student leader. Met Shirley. I think back to meeting Barry. I think you were there even before we worked together at ASU. So there's so many people. And Shirley, of course, touched my life. Was here for another event a couple years ago. And our dear friend Suzanne Feaster wasn't in the room. She was online. I met Suzanne in the food line. And she says to me, she says, "Oh yeah, you're that guy that harasses my dad." And of course, Jack was an inspiration. So, Kathy, it was so lovely to hear your words and all the people that touched my life. A lot of people say, well, John, like, where have you been? Like, why don't we see you at Arizona Town Hall? And Steve Zabilski, who I'm sitting next to, has known me for the last 24 years because my wife and I moved to Boston. We're Arizona natives. My wife grew up in Mesa. I grew up in Tempe. But we spent 8 years in Boston. We had our first two kids there, but we came back to a very different Arizona. More than 1 million people had moved from 1996 to 2004 when we came back. And when we came back, we were busy raising 5 kids. I was running a national business, and I didn't really volunteer for anything other than my kids' activities and my church. And I ran 2 businesses. We're a little bit busy with 5 kids, and I kept getting Arizona Town Hall stuff. I kept thinking, I'd love to take 3 days to go visit about water and all these topics, but I haven't done it. And I'm like a lot of CEOs in Phoenix and a lot of founders. We're just too busy. The only person I said yes to is Vince Roig and Rich Nickel over here when they were trying to recreate Education Forward Arizona to build consensus around education and attainment and workforce issues. And Rich has done a great job, and he was able to persuade me to do one more thing when I basically said no to everything else. And so part of this polarization discussion is about how to get people that are not in this room to care. And how do we get them to pay attention to the things that we know are vital? Because there's no common ground right now for so many of the important topics like water, like children, like families, like human flourishing, and all the things we care about. So I'm going to quickly just make sure we're operating from the same information. Leadership Now is a group mostly of Harvard MBAs and Stanford MBAs, which means we're capitalists. I believe markets work. I believe incentives work and disincentives work. I believe those things firmly. There's a group of people in the country that don't. And we might dislike Harvard Business School or Stanford Business School or these places. And I certainly never knew anybody that had gone there. When I applied, I was the only person in 1996 from Arizona State that applied. I was the only Arizonan that was applied. And it may not mean a lot, but when I go to these meetings nationally, everybody's worried about Arizona. But Arizona is this interesting place right now. We are at the tip of the spear for so many political things. By the way, if you want to launch a product, Phoenix is where you want to do it nationally. We look like so many of the other places. And so all the little franchises you see get launched here first. Products get launched here first. And so do political ideas, good ones and bad ones. So we know a lot of these stats. I'm going to go really quickly through these things. Very few people trust government. The loss of institutional trust is massive. And there's a point to this, which the Edelman surveys have said, basically, CEOs are becoming more trustworthy than any time in history. The leaders of our organizations, many of you are leaders, and I don't even like the title CEO anymore, but the presidents, the executive directors, are the people you rely on for a paycheck, are people you go to for guidance on who to vote for. What should I care about? How do I think of water? How do I think of these things? And the reality is we have demonized the other side so much that it's very difficult to imagine these things. Now, some of you might be surprised. I'm a registered independent. I'm married, my wife, longtime Democrat. My family, my grandmother is Republican Woman of the Year twice in the 60s and the 80s. Somehow my wife and I met in the middle, and we've been independents ever since. And that takes a lot when you're in Boston. What the reality is that we've gotten as bad as almost any time in our history in terms of demonizing the other side. We don't know our neighbors, and the extremes in Arizona are actually at the very, very far end. And what you said about water, Rhett, is exactly right. I had a lot of family in rural Arizona. My stepfather was mayor of Taylor, Arizona. If you look at snowflakes outperformed like in political class people from Jeff Flake to others, and they feel ostracized. They used to vote Democrat. Now they can't find a Democrat in town. But these issues are real. And we know the polarization is real, and I'm not going to read the statistics, but the reality is Arizona's thriving, right? The second national state for economic growth. So in my business communities that I go to, we're all really happy. We just missed Doug Ducey. We like our tax policies. We like our vouchers. We like a lot of the things because it's actually a great place to employ people. But the problem is, when you look at the real data, we're really worried about public schools. We're worried about the workforce. We're worried about water. And the political class is not listening. The business class is happy to just benefit from what's happening right now. The economic momentum is real. There's a lot of positives here, but the reality is the biggest threat to economic well-being in the state is the political polarization we're facing. And so the challenges are national. They're not just here. The distrust, extremism, and the media collapse. And I've talked about the media collapse before. I was deeply involved when Facebook got started. I was and I can give you lots of stories about that. But the algorithms that feed each of us a different news source today is destroying this common good that is really essential for overcoming this. And what I like to say is, some of you have seen a video. Steve Jobs is really good at this. There's signal and there's noise. We're surrounded by noise. Rhett just gave us really good signal. What does Arizona Town Hall do? It provides signal. These town hall reports are fantastic, right? They should be feeding the LLMs because it's factual, it's truth. The signals, Arizona has actually got great infrastructure for this. Arizona Town Hall and new innovations. Some of you know Carlos at Arizona Talks. He's trying to convene some interesting people, but there's no data there. There's no research, but they're interesting dialogues. Some of you went to Dan Mahoney's Leadership Summit. If you don't know Dan, that room was all filled with CEOs. Probably anybody here in the room went? I don't think so. But you want to talk about 400 people that run companies, some of the most important companies in Phoenix. There were 10 people who sold their company for more than $1 billion in the room in Arizona. They're not members of town hall. They haven't been invited to town hall. I need to give Tara the list. But these are the people that we need to involve in the community. And when I realized those, then you've got this great organization that Laddie Coord started, that Sybil Francis is running, the Center for the Future of Arizona, that surveys what we want. But do people know? Are they reading? If you ask Sybil what her list is, it's not big enough. And there's nobody else pointing in that direction to say, what does Arizona want? That's signal. The noise are the antagonists who make money from the rage, the polarization that continues. And we have dozens of news sources. Many of them are solving the problem that the Arizona Republic is failing to do. By the way, how many people subscribe to the Arizona Republic in the room? Oh, that's unusual, because now there's only like maybe another 100,000 that do, right? When Barry was active as U.S. West lobbyist, there were 600,000 paid subscribers to the Arizona Republic in the 90s. There are less than 100,000 paid subscribers today. The publisher doesn't even live in Phoenix. This is a real problem. Where is the single source of truth? How do you overcome polarization when we don't operate from the same information? Politics has become an industry in Arizona, and it happens to house a lot of organizations that are very important nationally. Turning Point USA, policy groups, Alliance Defending Freedom, and Goldwater Institute. By the way, I'm friends with a lot of the people in those organizations. I may be the most conservative friend of my liberal friends, right? And the opposite is true also. My liberal friends can't believe I talk to these people, and I even have dinner and drinks with them, but I do. And what I really love is we've lost the humor. Benson, like him or not, he was great. And I'll tell you, the humor that we've had even here is important. And that good sense of humor, Arizona Town Hall always reminded me of that. I was thinking of Pat. Pat was the recorder in my first town hall group. She had a good sense of humor, but she also like ran the meeting with an iron fist. And so the real issue, Steven Pinker talks a lot about this, and it's about the loss of common knowledge. We're not operating from the same information. And one of the important pieces of ending polarization is to make certain we have the same facts. What the Education Forward Arizona and Sybil's organization, Center for the Future of Arizona, is highlighting the dashboard of literacy. Right? Literacy is fundamental to everything else. If you can't read, it's really hard to know you're running out of water, and how to tell people that we're running out of water. And so these types of issues are still vital to it. And what I would say is we're living also, in a more isolated life. And so when I look at the people who know your neighbors, we just don't know them. And when 77% have no friends from the other political side, and that is partly because the loss of these third places. These third places were Rotary meetings at Monty's, where my dad would go and see virtually all of Tempe when he was superintendent of schools. You'd see all the people, the barbers, and the variety of folks. Well, most of my friends, the only club we belong to is Costco, right? Or something similar. And you do see most of Phoenix in one of the Costco's you go to on the weekends, but we don't walk away with any common knowledge. And the reality is, we are fortunate with the infrastructure the Arizona Town Hall has. How many states call you to say, could we do this in another state? Town Hall is the building block. It is the remedy to the antagonists who are making an industry out of this. But we need to actually take a moment to rewrite where that opportunity might be. I do believe employers, faith communities, coffee shops and libraries, and even gyms become important places that we have not recognized because Rotary and Kiwanis are not coming back. Seroptimus, one of the best organizations, the best women I know, that organization probably is struggling right now, just like every other one, to get young people involved. What I would go on to just say to conclude really is that business leaders are surprisingly becoming more trusted. Edelman's research, which is really one of the most, they do an annual survey of the most trusted organizations, trusted brands, CEOs, which I don't even like the term. I think capitalists have a bad reputation right now. They're extracting more value than they're giving. In many, many ways, the criticisms about capitalism not working for everybody are true, right? And this is a problem. But the truth is, when I hold company meetings, I talk about elections. I give people a day off to go work in the elections polls. I want our company to know who Stephen Ricker is. I want people to know that election violence is not acceptable. And CEOs who stand up and say these things, and what Leadership Now is aiming to do, is create, with Adam Goodman and myself and a few others, to call out when nobody else does with a group of other CEOs, because it's not easy to do it one-on-one. You need 70 people, you need 100 of them, to say, you know what, when somebody calls for the lynching of the only elected Jewish county official, Stephen Ricker, that's wrong, right? And that's what Leadership Now is doing. But we need more examples, and I think Town Hall's effort to encourage CEOs to step up. And I'm not talking about CEOs of for-profit companies only, nonprofits and others. And when Adam and I ask people to stand up for different things, like election integrity, democracy, and other things, we ask, typically our list is about 250 CEOs. Over half are worried about retaliation. Over half don't have the courage to do it because I don't want to get involved. I don't want to offend my employees. I don't want to offend my customers. I've been threatened with the loss of government contracts. This is really a factor and a symptom, but these CEOs actually reach people. And what we need are the more Bill Posts of the world, former CEO of Pinnacle West, more Jack Feasters of the world, more CEOs that stand up and are in the room. By the way, they're not all part of GPL. They're not showing up in Phoenix Chamber meetings either. But they might show up to this type of discussion because what we're really worried about is how polarization is going to create an economic risk that we've never seen before, right? And that economic risk is going to lead to, did I just miss it? Yeah, more volatility. And if you look at the disappointment right now in the governor, it's severe on the business side. And I say that as a ally and a friend generally to her. I'm thankful for her vetoes, but there's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of people in the business community worried that we're not going to get the leadership on water that we need, on education and workforce, and these issues around children and other things. That it's not her fault alone, but it's the political polarization between the legislature and the governor's office that needs to happen. So what Leadership Now is doing is to try to be that middle, a safe place where other executives can basically hold arms to address these issues. We would like to lean into a research report or something like this that is a call to action for the business community, especially to step in, for promoting civic norms, and most of all, talking about how we rebuild trust, how we encourage civic engagement, and promote election reforms. Because the polarization without some design changes will be difficult to overcome. So this is kind of the flywheel that I think is why it's useful to have 2028 be the year we discuss this. I'm a big fan of flywheels. Poor Rich, when I chaired Education Forward Arizona, every organization has a flywheel. Our flywheel in Arizona Town Hall is the research report that leads to the convening of people from every county in the state, diverse voices, where you have a structured conversation over days and dinners and meals that build consensus and insights. And I believe for the topic of polarization, that the way the flywheel gets recreated and helps recreate the civic infrastructure that helped us through the 70s when we did have water issues and we built the CAP and we built the consensus around it, you have to restart the civic engagement. And post COVID, the loss of these bonds needs something to restart it. I think it starts with the research report. I think it starts with Arizona Town Hall. And I think 2028 is a great year to do it. The first two pieces of this, the shared facts and the dialogue, only start because of Arizona Town Hall. Going on one step further, there we go. This is the more complex one. My wife didn't like it. Melissa said, no, it's too much context. There's nobody going to read it. But 3 through 6 is what happens after Town Hall. And 3 through 6 are the key issues, which is how do we build institutional trust? When you meet one another at Town Hall, you actually trust one another. You start to realize it. You get more civic participation. You identify the paths to breaking down and inviting the folks. I'm not even certain anybody in the room got invited to Dan Mahoney's leadership summit that Condoleezza Rice spoke at, and most of the CEOs were in. The problem is that business room is empty of the people that are here, and this room needs some of those folks. So we need to rebuild that, and I believe it can happen. And then ultimately, the decisions we make are frequently design problems. Michael Crow says it's great in many, many ways. We actually have the infrastructure to do it. We don't have the will. We don't have the data, the facts on how to go forward and to build that consensus. And so these are questions I would encourage us to think about, but it starts with research report. I'm not the expert on how to do this. I know we have experts in the state that can do it, but how do we convene that authentic conversation without Town Hall doing it? I just don't see how we get past it in Arizona, how we start thinking about election designs, how we think about, the election integrity issues we have in the state. At the end of the day, sustaining attention, though, is the real issue. So I go back to thinking about signal versus noise. Arizona Town Hall is signal. The noise, we need to be able to say, ignore it at times. The signal comes from executives and leaders like us in this room that point out that the Center for the Future of Arizona has that good content, right? And has the Arizona Town Hall as a foundation for truth, right? For common knowledge. And without letting executives and the leadership community know where that data is, it's not going to happen. And then we have to have the systems that endure, and the systems would come out of the research, I believe. And the outcomes are focusing on what do we amplify? Rhett, you're absolutely right. Where is the concern about water? Right? It doesn't matter that the Arizona Republic doesn't write about it because only 100,000 people, the 7 million that live here, read it. Right? So where do we amplify that? And that's the fundamental question to I believe people care, but they don't know what to care about because there's no common knowledge. And it starts with Arizona Town Hall to make that happen. So I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here and to encourage you to consider this. I don't have the answers. What I know is Arizona Town Hall is the place to have those conversations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. See what I mean about my earlier comments? Can I vote for both of those? Wow. We are going to just take a brief technological break while we load the next presentation. And while we're doing that, I'm going to jump into a few of the things I'm going to comment on before I release you to go to your panels. First one is you have a white sheet on your table. Looks like this. It says Arizona Town Hall topics since 2000. Has all of them. The one thing I note is that the presidential election year 2024, we talked about voting in elections. We were a little worried, but that turned out okay. 2028 is a presidential election year. To the extent we talk about polarization, I predict that'll be okay. So if that's where you want to go, fine. If you want to go water, fine too. The other thing is there's a pink sheet. I'm going to talk about panel assignments after we're done and we're ready to go. But in the meantime, if you want to look at it on the back of the pink sheet, the first half of that page, there are some factors to be considered in deciding which topic you think should be the topic for 2028. I don't need to read them to you. You can read, but I call your attention to them. And I think that's it for now. How are we doing? Let's get in. Are we good? Okay. All right. Our third speaker is January Contreras, is a public interest attorney, state and federal government executive, and a nonprofit leader dedicated to advancing safety, justice, and opportunity for children and families. January served as Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, for which she received bipartisan support from the U.S. Senate during her confirmation. That happens? Okay. She came home to Arizona and led Children's Action Alliance, a statewide children's advocacy organization. She is the founder of Arizona Legal Women and Youth Services, always a legal aid organization serving vulnerable children and youth and survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence. January is here to talk with us about child and family services. January, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Tara, for the invitation. My first town hall was back when I worked for the best governor we've ever had, Janet Napolitano. I worked as her health policy advisor, and you guys were doing great work, and healthcare was a big issue. It was before the Affordable Care Act, and small businesses and many others were left without access. And so we see how far we've come. So I understand what Rhett's saying when he's like 15 years is gone. 2015 is a long time ago. I want to thank Rhett and John for their presentations. They were, very compelling to me as someone who cares very deeply about this state. And all of this really is connected. But whoever was in the room last time and voted for children and families, thank you. There's so much to talk about, so I narrowed it down. And let's go through some of this information. But, there's a lot happening, and we'll cover it. But we'll start with the journey of one Arizona family. That's mine. That couple with the heart around their face, that's my Nana and Tata, Albert and Celia Fontes. Albert is from Nogales, Arizona. My Nana Celia is from Tubac. She went to the Territorial High School there. Neither of my grandparents, this is on my mom's side, graduated from high school. But my Tata went on to be a World War II paratrooper. He came out with what aren't what we traditionally consider public programs, because there was an emphasis on the survey on services for kids and families. But it's important to understand he had a GI Bill that helped him be a homeowner. He gained services and skills in his service in the U.S. Army that helped him in his career, including becoming a mechanic. The next one there, those are my parents. My dad, Mario Esquivel, is from Bisbee, and my mom was born in Nogales and grew up in Phoenix, not too, a mile south of the Diamondbacks field. My mom was the first person in her to graduate from college. So she did that as I was growing up. That's one generation where her parents did not graduate from high school. And yet there she goes, very determined woman. And actually, when I went to law school, she said, I'm going to get an MBA because you can't have more education than me. Then that's when I graduated from college. So the first grandkid to graduate. Those are my grandparents who were with me. And within 1 year and a half, I didn't have my Tata anymore, but it was one of the best days of my life and of the life of my grandparents. And then you have my little family there. We have 2 sons. I've been married for more than 30 years to my college sweetheart, a blessing in my life. So congratulations on your more than 50. And we just celebrated our oldest son's graduation from college, and now he's in law school. Now, college degrees aren't everything, but I bring this up to say, this is how I grew up knowing Arizona. This is how I grew up believing that we all have the opportunity. And there were a lot of things in support that made that happen, including the extras like sports. $30 a year is what we paid, and we didn't pay for high school, and we didn't have to travel. Music, things in our schools that were available all the time. Summer Parks and Rec, that was free. I learned ballet folklorico and also POM. Our first POM performance was to Give It to Me Baby by Rick James, which as an older, I'm like, wow, why on earth would they pick that song? But a college degree isn't everything. And I have that plaque there because until the day I lost my Nana, actually it's still there, that plaque sat on our wall when my grandfather, Albert Fontes, earned the Golden Idea Award for the city of Phoenix. As a mechanic, he came up with an idea that helped them do their jobs better and save a little money. And he didn't go to college. He didn't even graduate from high school. And yet that award, we all heard that story over and over, and it sits on that wall to this day. That's true because my aunt lives there now. So, gosh, I think I'm going to need my glass. So, in talking about the questions here, I don't bring all of them, but I brought some of them. Oh, thanks so much, Kirsten. Then I can look in the back. Is it important for Arizona to address this topic, children and family services for the future of Arizona? The answer is yes. I don't feel like this is a competition because these are all very, very important topics. I'm only telling you from my perspective of the various roles that I've had and being a mom and a family member to many cousins and aunts and uncles who have had different struggles. What do we wish for our families, our kids, our grandkids, and our grandparents? Can our state or local communities identify essential services and supports that all children should have access to? All families should have access to? Are there basics that we can agree on, that we can say, who's in the room, who's in this community that wants to be a part of making sure we're there? And can families make it in this time of rising costs for housing, for childcare, for healthcare? I've never presented on this, so these next 2 slides are unusual for me to present. But we're talking about children and family services, and I want us to have some context of people are having less babies. People are having less children. This is the national rate along with the Arizona rate. So we do see that there are fewer children. This is a Pew study who asked folks what made them choose not to have children. And I just share it because there are many reasons, of course, why a family does or doesn't have children, whether that's, of their own choosing or not. But I point out concerns about the state of the world is 38% mentioned that. Can't afford to raise a child, 36. So that's 1 out of every 3 persons saying I can't afford to raise a kid. And then you have concerns about the environment. That's just important context to have. When we think about what our strengths are or can be, multi-generational households, we do have a higher rate of multi-generational households in the Southwest as compared to the rest of the country. This is just, was interesting to me to see broken down by county, and that may be hard to read, but where you see the highest percentage, Apache and Navajo are indigenous communities having that highest rate of multi-generational, but you also see it high in Santa Cruz, Yuma, other areas where that's a strength. Now, sometimes that's because that's what we enjoy, that's what we appreciate, that's what we value. And since the pandemic, there's a lot of data that the financial instability with the rising housing prices has made that, and the rising childcare prices have made that happen to a higher degree more than a family may choose. So is this the right time in 2028 to address this topic? I think that's up to us. Do we and our neighbors, as we think back to the people that we live with, that we work with, that are around us, do you think people feel a sense of urgency to support children and families? The truth is the impact of federal legislation, which we call HR 1, and administrative actions on services right now are projected to continue to grow, and they've been really big. And we're going to talk a little bit about those. And can the Arizona Town Hall convenings, which you have all over the state in small settings and communities where people can really drill down on what's happening in their community, can those help spark state and local collaborative solutions that communities will need? The answer is yes, but I don't want to answer those for you. That is what I have seen. Through Children's Action Alliance, we traveled to 9 counties last year talking about different topics. Oftentimes childcare, but sometimes we're talking about the whole set of data that we have around how kids are doing. In Mojave County, you had people learning from each other in that room, hearing how many healthcare providers are already shutting down in their community because of federal legislation. Now I want to talk about the journey of other Arizona families, because I do think mine is very common, and I'm sure there are people in this room who feel that same pride in your ancestors, your grandparents, your parents, your kids carrying that forward. But there are also people who struggle. And so for 8 years, I had the privilege of starting and running a legal aid center always. We serve kids and young adults up to age 26 dealing with some of the worst circumstances you can imagine, including having been in the foster care system, being homeless, being abused, or being trafficked. Out of that 8 years, I had 2 young moms call, ask for me. Someone told them that January Contreras could possibly help them. And their question to me was, if I give my kids to DCS, can I get them back? And so I pause for us to think about what it takes for a mom who loves their kids so much. They want their kids to be safe. They want their kids to have the basic needs. And they know that they don't see tomorrow. They don't see how they can make it. One of these young moms, she had experienced foster care herself. She had an abusive relationship with the father of her 2 children. She was experiencing depression and mental health challenges at that time, and she could not make ends meet financially. Now, I'm going to tell you, those are the tough things about her. And at the very same time, this is a young woman who was in a Salvation Army workforce training program. She had been chosen as the speaker for the dinner. She was amazing. And in fact, years later, I had her come, invited her, and she wanted to speak to some judges about how, don't decide which apples are good apples and bad apples, because everyone deserves the opportunity. The other young woman, she became unsafe in her own home as a teenager. When that happened, she moved out. She moved from family to family. She was in a CBS line and didn't have enough money. A man comes from the back of the line and says, I can cover this for you. And that began her journey of being trafficked. Ultimately, that was an abusive relationship, not shocking. He ended up in a prison for attempted murder against someone else, and that's how she got away. And for her, she couldn't make it financially. Even as the other side to her story, she was living in a program for human trafficking survivors and was one of the peer educators. She was helping others get through these very tough times. So these are people who are capable, as any of us, of being leaders, who have the strength to help others, and yet find it hard, primarily because of economics, to envision, can I survive with my kids tomorrow? So as we think about child and family services, I feel really blessed that I have those two young women to think of, because in my service in the federal government, in my service with Children's Action Alliance, I carry them with me. So here's an important thing to understand. Median income varies very widely in Arizona. So the median income for a two-parent household is $121,000. Now, it can be tough to make it on that, as we know. But when you think about a single mom or a single dad or a grandparent raising their kids, look at how tough it is for them to pay for the same set of responsibilities for their kids with a fraction of the income to do so. And then it's not so shocking to think about, why do we need to help people afford childcare? Why do we need to help people afford healthcare? Why do we need to help people be able to buy a very modest amount of groceries through the SNAP program? If I could explain one thing to policymakers over and over and ingrain in their heads, it would be this. It would be understanding there are people who are working very hard and they still cannot make it. So this is just an example of some of the services that children and families need. Right now, we've seen SNAP enrollment plummet in Arizona. We have seen almost 200,000 children since last summer be disenrolled from food assistance. And again, I'm telling you, this is not here's $300, go buy ding dongs and Fritos, which are my choice of lunch as an elementary school student. It's a small amount of money designed to help people in very tough situations. There used to be waivers in place for kids, young adults who had been in the foster care system, for veterans, for seniors. Those waivers are gone. And on the senior side, the age was raised, so it's not the same. And this federal law that brought these cuts, they made a lot of change necessary at the state level that states are scrambling to implement. They don't have the IT systems, they don't have the staff to do this. And in Arizona, many of you probably noticed, we've been national news for the last several months because Arizona is the place that has by far had the biggest drop. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a county by county look. I mean, we talked about how rural families, they have different challenges, or sometimes they're the same challenges, but they're present with more frequency. So if you can see here, for example, Apache County, Yuma County, Navajo County, you have near 20% or more of people who have food insecurity. That's a lot, two out of 10. And this is 2023 data. Understand, this is before all these changes are coming to SNAP, before the massive disenrollment that we're seeing right now. So it's important, when I envision what would be the field of dreams of a town hall choosing children and families, it's, boy, communities getting together en masse to talk about what happens when 20%, 30%, 40% of the families, seniors, kids in our community lose the very modest amount of food assistance that they've had. What do they do? How will they support their food banks? Food banks are not designed as a nationwide system the way that SNAP is, but they're doing their best to fill some gaps. But this is why I bring this particular slide, so that we can understand each county is situated a little differently. Healthcare. So what we've seen with SNAP in part is because Arizona is already trying to implement that bill of HR1. So it's hard. It's almost an impossible task. And we didn't do very well at that. Up next is Medicaid. That's access. That's kids care. Starting in January 27 is when the rules kick into place by this federal legislation, where states will have to comply. Lord help us if it looks like Medicaid as it did for SNAP. That is absolutely not an option. Okay? We do already start to see, what it looks like, what it costs. You mentioned, does bipartisanship ever happen? Well, thankfully, this state budget did put some funding in to access and to DES, those agencies, in order to try to get ahead or catch up with the administrative, very costly changes that are needed by federal legislation. This is going to need to be a community effort, though, because people will lose their Medicaid, hospitals will struggle, providers, as Mojave County told us, are already closing their doors. And yet people are still going to get sick. People are still going to need help. And so what are the systems that we're going to set up, or gaps we will try to fill as communities? There's got to be some creative CEO ideas out there. We're going to have to work together. And we're going to need to pay attention to what are the agencies doing with the millions of dollars they were given. Not enough, let me be clear, but what are they doing with that funds to try to make sure what has happened with SNAP does not happen on the healthcare side? Imagine the consequences of that. So the Medicaid changes in that federal legislation, they impose some very costly administrative changes. Some people are going to have to get checked twice a year instead of once a year. Work requirements that sound so good, but they're very, very difficult to administer. And there's just cost shifts. So we have devised a system that works for Arizona, where our hospitals pay in. This federal legislation will start to chip away at that. So we will see a loss of coverage, but we're also going to see a loss of funds that are available to us. Some of the things that we look there are, we will see people lose health insurance, but where does community come in? Not everybody needs to lose their health insurance, and we need to be working together to help people understand. Most of them are still eligible. We need to help them have systems so that they understand, how do you navigate these new administrative requirements, because the vast majority of people are still eligible. And that's to me what we need to focus on is, look, if they're catching someone that is not eligible for services, great. But there are a lot of people, including sitting in nursing homes, including kids that need to go to an asthma appointment, that are eligible and who won't know how to navigate this system if Access figures out themselves how to set this up. Most nursing home days are covered by Medicaid and services for children and adults with developmental disabilities. This is an issue. So next, talking about childcare. Childcare is an ongoing topic. So it was on the survey, came up several times on the survey that I was provided by Tara. When we go to a community, it's always childcare comes up. People want the opportunity for their kids to be able to have early learning, to be in a safe place. And many of them want the opportunity to work to increase their own prosperity, but they are not able to do so because they don't have a childcare provider available to them. That's quality. This is data from our shop, from the Kids Count data book. Children age 3 to 4 not enrolled in early learning. We are well above the national average in this. Look, everyone makes a choice. Not every parent wants their child in a preschool or childcare. But what this data tells us is that it's an affordability issue for most people. Here we see the state budget in regards to childcare assistance. Prior to the Great Recession in 2008, we used to put in sizable money. So you see that orange, I will say that is when my former boss was in office, and we had $84 million of state funding going to affordable childcare. You see years of zeroed out, nothing from the state budget going in. And then under Governor Hobbs, with the support of a bipartisan delegation of legislators, we see that rise. First 12 million and then $45 million 2 years in a row. Not enough, but very, very important and a value statement. And that is helping some families in every county in this state be able to afford childcare. This is a piece from the Common Sense Institute. So they are a more a Republican, I believe former Governor Ducey's involved with it. They're talking about childcare too. And I'll tell you, I was in Yuma. It was the Chamber of Commerce. It was the local economic development leaders. They were there talking about childcare. This gives us, again, a dose of reality about childcare. What this tells us is the hours of work needed to afford a childcare in a childcare center. And if you look at that, if you're making minimum wage, then you need to be working 72 hours a week. And if you're working at a higher rate, then you need to be the 31.5 hours of your work week are going to be paying for childcare. So I think almost all of us know someone who said I had to quit because it was my childcare was going to cost more than my paycheck. My childcare already costs more than my apartment rent or my mortgage. And this is an important thing that you do have bipartisan interest and fact gathering around why childcare is important. If you go and look at the Chamber of Commerce, the Arizona Chamber of Commerce actually has a great report on why Medicaid cuts are going to affect our economy. But the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce has a great report on childcare and how the lack of that impacts our economy as a state. So if you think about, will town hall discussions have a significant impact? Number one, there's no leadership like local leadership, period. Innovation happens, partnerships happen, collaboration happen. People feel more accountable to what's happening in their local communities. Community does build momentum and a sustained attention to priorities. And communities, they know their own families and their neighbors, and they can turn what is that caring spirit into action. Here's just one example that I wanted to share of family resource centers. This is an example of a promising practice that is present in many communities, but it's not present in many others. We have 65 family resource centers in Arizona, and they're centered in 5 counties. So we don't have them in 10 other counties. You often see for these, it's a place where parents can go, they find social connections with other parents, they're actually getting parent education, and they're getting connected with resources. So I went to visit one. The loneliness that was mentioned in John's presentation, that's true across the board. That's true for parents. And so when you think about these family resource centers and how they can help prevent crises from happening, whether that's a mom whose mental health is better because she's around other moms and dads, or whether that's they need to know they can't afford formula and they need help getting connected with something that helps them get that. Or they're just having fun with their kids, singing songs and learning dances. This is an idea that is taking hold. But local leadership is absolutely needed, and it's an example of what can happen when you have some state investment, and here it's first things first dollars, with local leaders, local business leaders, sometimes local faith leaders, and they're making this happen to make a difference in their communities. Here, I just want to share, this is a resource if you're looking for data around kids. We are really proud to be the Kids Count data partner with the Annie E. Casey Foundation. That's a national foundation. And Children's Action Alliance has this information available on our website, but also we want to share with you. There's hardly any information you can't find by county, by congressional district, and by state, of course. And I'll just bring us back to here because I should never have to get these 2 calls. And whether it's you thinking about someone you know and care about who maybe their nursing home stay is at risk, or you have a grandkid who had to move back home because their lease increased by $500 a month, which is a true story in my family. Is there the will to say there are some things that are not negotiable? We do want our policymakers to be creating this stability in partnership with local leadership. And we're willing to stand up for this and find partners in our own community to make some of this happen. So I thank you so much for being a part of this, for being committed. I know people here, I know many faces in here as well. Leaders, people who have been at the Capitol and elsewhere doing the hard work to make this state strong. And I really appreciate you talking about children and families. Thank you.
Yeah, I told you. Can I vote for all?